Good afternoon, CPA reviewees. So, welcome to this review discussion for property, plant, and equipment. Okay, so the applicable standard for our PPE is PAS 16 or IAS 16. Okay, so our focus points for this review discussion is to discuss concepts for property, plant, and equipment along with the answering of theoretical questions and situational problems. Okay. So let us start first the theoretical questions, items 1 to 40. Actually, our first focus for this video discussion or review discussion will be the theoretical question first, okay? Because it is needed for us to be reminded or refreshed of the concepts when it comes to PPE and all other topics related to PPE. So let us start first with theoretical questions. Nonetheless, everything else that we're going to tackle in theory questions will be applied naman dun sa ating situational problems. Maybe yung situational problems na lecture or review discussion on another videos na yan. Okay? So let us start with items 1 to 40 for this discussion. So for item 1, the question for item 1, sabi dyan, under PAS 16, PPE includes all of the following except. Okay? So tinatanong tayo ng exception dyan from A, B, C, D. So yung sagot natin dito is actually letter C. Okay? Letter A is PPE, letter B is also PPE, and letter D is also PPE. Why is it letter C not included as part of the PPE? Because according to the scope of the standard, okay, PAS 16, paragraph 2 to 5, on the scope of the standard PAS 16, the following daw are exceptions to PPE. Nasa letter B, biological assets related to agricultural activity, at saka sa letter D, mineral rights and mineral reserves. Kung babalikan natin yung item 1 question, letter C, sabi dyan, biological assets related to agricultural activity and mineral rights. So again, according to the scope of PAS 16, okay, paragraph 2 to 5, B and D provides with biological assets and mineral rights. So biological assets related to agricultural activities, specific naman. However, merong another provision, yung PAS 16, second sentence of letter B, sabi niya, this standard applies to bearer plants but does not apply to the produce of the bearer plants. Meaning, kung biological asset siya na bearer plant, okay, bearer, take note, bearer, applicable yung PAS 16 but not on the produce of those bearer plants. Pero kung yung biological asset is really related to the agricultural activity, then PAS 16 is not applicable. Rather, PAS or IAS 41, agriculture. Okay? So for mineral rights, I guess the applicable standard is for wasting assets or exploration and evaluation asset. I guess it is PFRS 6. Next, we have item 2. For item 2, sabi dyan, which of the following is not included in the cost of PPE? So, parang medyo random tayo dito. So, yung sagot, okay, general to general na accounting for the cost of the PPE. So, we have letter B. Always take note for an item to be considered as cost of the PPE, kailangan yung taxes or yung purchase taxes, kailangan non-refundable. Okay, yung letter B kasi yung sabi niya dyan is yung letter B sabi niya is refundable. If we're going to summarize the cost of the asset, generally it will include the purchase price, less any trade discounts and rebates, if purchased. Then we have import duties, non-refundable purchase taxes, and directly attributable costs. Take note, non-refundable purchase taxes. Yung sa letter B kasi is refundable. So pag refundable, not part of the cost of the PPE. Okay? Item 3. Item 3, sabi niya, which of the following is not an item of PPE? So tinatanong ulit, balik tayo. Okay, classification of each item as to PPE or not. Pero yung tinatanong dito is not an item of PPE. Yung sagot natin dyan is letter A. Bakit letter A? Punta muna tayo sa letter B. Sa letter B sabi, land used for construction of administrative building. So there is a determined use, okay? Determinate use for that land. Machinery used in producing products, then high-cost computing equipment. Okay? So yung tatlong yan, pasok as an item of PPE. Bakit yung land held for undeterminable use, hindi siya part ng PPE? Okay? Generally, land is a property. It could be qualified as PPE, but because yung term niya dyan is undeterminable use, what standard is applicable for that is not PAS 16, okay, rather PAS 40, okay, on investment properties. Okay? Explanation natin, generally an asset is considered as PPE under PAS 16 kapag determined future use yung meron. So for example, yung kanina, okay, for use of production or as plant site, pwede rin for purposes of rentals to others or general administrative use. Okay? Otherwise, pag undetermined future use, sabi kanina sa letter A, PAS 40 will apply. Okay? So generally, yung nasa standard yung tatlong yan. For use of production or plant site, rental to others, or general administrative use. Kung babalikan natin yung item 3, sabi dyan sa B, C, and D, construction of administrative building. So administrative use din yan. Machinery used in producing products. So for purposes of production or plant site, ganun. High cost computing equipment. So equipment is really a part of PPE. Hindi naman pwede maging investment property yung equipment. Okay? Kung babalikan yung concept sa investment property, sabi sa investment property, only land and building. So automatically, kapag machinery or equipment, talagang PP na talagang qualifications or classification sa kanya. Okay, so again, our answer is letter A. Number 4, under PAS 16, which of the following is not an attribute of PPE? So tinatanong tayo ng not an attribute of PPE. So yung apat are all attributes, but which among the 4 is not an attribute? Take note, if we say PPE, kailangan with physical substance, meaning kailangan tangible. So not an attribute is letter D. Okay, so explanation natin, okay, an item of PPE, kailangan may physical substance, meaning kabaliktaran ng intangible doon sa letter D. Okay, dapat, in order for letter D to be an attribute of PPE, kailangan not intangible, rather, sabi sa explanation, tangible. Okay? The only assets that are considered intangible are really the intangible assets as part of the PAS 38. Okay? Because intangible assets are really intangible in nature. So, simple explanation mo naman. Simply stated. And item 5. Item 5, sabi dyan, the following are examples of a qualifying asset. So, parang we have jumped up sa concept ng borrowing cost. Okay, yung portion ng concept ng borrowing cost, ano ba yung mga asset na considered as qualifying asset? Because qualifying asset are those assets that are qualifying. Joke. Okay, qualifying assets are those assets that require significant amount of or period of time or before they are ready for sale or intended use. So yung exception from A to D is actually letter B. Okay? Why letter B? Kung i-explain natin what is qualifying asset, again, it requires ample period or substantial period of time before being ready for intended use or sale. Okay? Example niyan, we have the PPE or investment property under construction. Then we have intangible assets under development. Then we have inventories, but take note for inventories, they are made to orders or specialized in nature. Okay? Yung exception to the rule of qualifying asset are those purchased asset. Meaning, if we're going to analyze what is qualifying asset, we have to consider na kailangan, it is safe to say na construct or dinedevelop. Or let us have lang the term, qualifying asset is undergoing development. Okay? Development, which requires ample period or substantial period of time for the development of that asset. Kaya nga, qualifying asset. Yung purchased asset, hindi naman niya qualifying asset. Also, inventories produced in a repetitive basis. For example, yung mga inventories na nakikita niyo sa mga stores, retail stores, or wholesaling. Okay? Wholesale stores. Repetitive basis kasi sila. Okay? Meaning, parang short period of time yung requirement lang for the production of those inventories. But inventories that are made to orders or specialized in nature, they can qualify as qualifying asset. Then biological asset, hindi rin yan kasama. Then, of course, the short-term assets. Okay? So again, our item 5 is letter B. Item 6. So for item 6, sabi niya, which of the following is not an asset that falls under the scope of PAS 16? So parang pinapa-qualify ulit sa atin kung alin sa A, B, C, and D ang hindi PPE as per PAS 16. So letter A, bearer plans na mention niya kanina, dun sa scope na the standard applies, though bearer plant is a biological asset, nagiging PPE siya because bearer. Because the standard provides na yung bearer plant, applicable yung PAS 16 sa kanya. Okay? Letter B, assets held for production or supplies of goods. Yan, nasa production yan. So, pasok. The letter D, equipment planned by the management as held for sale, which is currently used by the entity until the year end. Okay. Yung sagot natin dito sa letter C. Okay. How do we differentiate letter C from letter D? Kasi baka medyo confused kayo kay letter D. Letter C sabi niya, building classified as PPE, so meaning non-current asset muna siya, which is discontinued in use and continuously marketed for disposal. Yung nagiging qualification na ng letter C is actually non-current asset held for sale. So PFRS 5 na po yung mag-a-apply sa kanya. How is letter D different from letter C? Sabi dito, equipment planned by the management. Plano pa lang. Planned by the management as held for sale but currently used by the entity until the year end. Okay? Ginagamit pa currently used. Okay? So kung yung ibig sabihin yung equipment until the end of the year, i-depreciate pa rin natin siya kasi nga continuously used. Kung if we're going to have it like with letter C na continuously marketed for disposal, then letter D, magiging non-current asset held for sale na rin siya. But because planned pa lang, and still currently used by the entity until the year end, letter D is still PPE. So sagot natin is letter C because clear that letter C is already for PFRS 5, non-current asset held for sale. So again, ayan. The exceptions to the rule ng ating PAS 16, we have yung letter A naman. Sabi sa letter A, ayan. Property, plant, and equipment classified as held for sale in accordance with PFRS or IFRS 5, non-current assets held for sale and discontinued operation. Then for letter B, kanina, letter B dito sa explanation, in connection with the letter A na bearer plant, ayan po yung naka-bold sentence sa letter B. Nasabi dyan, this standard applies to bearer plant but does not apply to the produce of the bearer plant. So, ibig sabihin, for example of a bearer plant, yung mango tree. The mango, the fruit, Okay, the fruit mango is or the mango fruit is the produce of the bearer plant, which is the mango tree. Yung mango tree, yun yung bearer plant. Yung mango fruit is the produce. Okay? Yung applicable standard for the tree is past 16. The applicable standard for the fruit would be past 41. Okay? And item 7. So item 7, the cost of demolishing an old building to give way for the construction of a new building shall be accounted for as. So tinatanong naman tayo dito sa, actually this question is related to the PIC interpretation. Okay? When it comes to acquisition of land and building at a single cost. A lump sum acquisition of land and building at a single cost. Tapos, yung old building, may intention na i-demolish yung building to make room for construction of a new building. Yung tinatanong, yung cost ng demolishing ng old building, saan daw mapupunta? Okay? How do we account or treat for that demolishing cost or cost of demolishing the old building? Okay. So generally, if we're going to demolish an old building, pag yung purpose ng demolishing ng building is to construct a new building, yung magiging treatment natin sa demolishing cost is part ng new building siya. So sagot natin is letter B. So if we're going to look into the PIC interpretation, sabi sa PIC interpretation, if the old building, okay, is demolished, dyan, from A, B to C, sabi dyan, if the old building is still usable, the allocated cost is treated as loss. But again, the net demolition cost or the demolition cost is part of the cost of the new building. Same goes if the old building is unusable but it was demolished. So meaning, regardless if the building is usable or not usable, pag demolish yan to make room for the construction of new building, then the net demolition cost will be part of the cost of the new building. Okay? Otherwise, kung yung pag-demolish ng building, ng old building is not intended for the construction of new building, then part lang ng land, according to letter C, part lang ng land yung net demolition cost. Kasi sabi sa letter C, the net demolition cost is part of the land if the demolition of the old building, whether usable or not usable, is not intended to make room for the construction of the new building. Maybe we are, the perspective in letter C is that we demolish the building to ready the land for the intended use of the land. Okay? Not for the intention of constructing a new building. Okay? So yan yung PIC interpretation. So again, take note whether usable or not usable. Pag demolish natin yung building, okay, for the intention of constructing a new building, then yung net demolition cost is part of the new building. Okay? So that's why letter B yung sagot natin. Actually, letter A pwede naman siya. But because yung phrase dito is construction of a new building, may nakalagay, we have to answer letter B. Okay? Item 8. Which of the following is not chargeable to land account? So tinatanong tayo of all the items from A to D, which among them is not chargeable? Okay? So yung sagot natin dito is letter B. Okay? Bakit yung expenditures for fence, water system, sidewalks, and pavement, hindi siya part ng cost at cost ng land account? Okay? So yung explanation dyan actually, the cost of the land will include all of the following from A to J, but kindly focus dyan sa letter I na item natin. Cost of permanent improvements such as for clearing, grading, leveling, and landfill. Meaning, yung letter B kanina, yung expenditures for fence, water system, sidewalks, and pavement, they are actually temporary improvement for the land. They could be temporary improvement for the land or minsan nga sa building. But generally, land yung pinag-uusapan natin dito, So fences, expenditures for fences, water systems, sidewalk, and pavements, they are actually temporary improvements. Okay? In order for an improvement to be considered as part of the cost of the land, kailangan, sabi dyan, permanent improvement. Examples ng permanent improvement, we have clearing cost, grading, leveling, and landfill. Okay? So, again, yung letter B kanina, temporary improvement lang yun. Meaning, depreciable. Okay? So, for example, yung fence, water system, sidewalks and pavement, depreciable po sila. Okay? Yung grading naman po na sinasabi dyan, yung clearing, grading, leveling, and landfill, di naman yan depreciable. Okay? They are permanent improvement for the land. Okay? So, yan. Yan yung explanation natin. So for letter number or item 9 pala, okay? Which of the following should not form part of the cost of the land? So again, another item for the costing for the land or charging a cost to the land account. So among A, B, C, and D, alin daw yung hindi? So let us qualify. Okay? Let us qualify according to the explanation natin. Yung sagot natin dyan would be letter A. Bakit naging sagot natin yung letter A? Why letter A is not part of the cost of the land? Kasi sabi si letter A, cost of option of land not acquired. Okay? Balikan natin yung explanation kanina. Yung cost ng land. If we're going to focus on item letter H, sabi dyan, cost of option is included as part of the cost of the land if that cost paid is related to the acquired land. Meaning, we paid that cost option with certainty of acquiring that land. Or if we have already acquired the land. So ibig sabihin, kung hindi in-acquire yung land, then yung cost paid natin, yung option cost na binayad natin, hindi siya magiging part ng cost ng land account. Okay? Yung part lang ng cost ng land account are those options for acquired land. Yung letter A kasi sabi dyan, not acquired. So kung hindi acquired, not part of the cost of the land. Okay? So that's why letter A yung ating sagot. Next, number 10. Number 10 sabi dyan, when payment for item of PP is deferred beyond normal credit terms, or credit items. Credit term ata yan. Kinopya ko lang yan actually. So the difference between the cash price equivalent and total payments should be, yung sagot natin dyan would be letter C. Considered as interest expense over the credit period. Okay. Kindly recall yung, i-recall ko sa inyo yung concept ng installment basis. Yung installment basis of acquiring PPE, nag-i-involve actually ng tinatawag na credit term. Because we are paying the entire installment price at an installment basis, kaya nga installment eh. Okay? There will be a difference between the cash price equivalent and the total installment price for the asset. What does the question meant? Sabi niya dyan, pag meron daw cash price equivalent tapos may given na installment price, how do we treat yung difference ng cash price equivalent at saka ng total installment price? Yung total payment, that is the total installment price. Okay? Yung sabi sa installment basis na merong cash price equivalent, the difference is implied interest. Or yun yung amount na i-recognize natin as interest expense or finance cost all throughout the credit period or credit term. Okay? May concept, yung concept kasi ng installment basis, pag may cash price equivalent, the asset is the cost of the asset is equivalent to the available cash price equivalent. Okay? Pag wala naman siyang cash price equivalent, yung gagamitin natin is the present value of all future cash payments. But because merong cash price equivalent dito, the difference of the total installment price and the cash price equivalent will be the implied interest. Kung no cash price equivalent naman, okay, yung magiging computation natin ng implied interest will be the difference of installment price and the present value of all cash payment. Okay? But because, again, available daw yung cash price equivalent and we have to compare it with the total payments or installment price, yung difference is the same implied interest. So yung implied interest na yan yung ating i-amortize over the credit term as an interest expense. Usually yung debit, yung sa journal entry, yung debit natin dyan is a discount. A discount on a liability account. So for example, notes payable. So that is a discount to notes payable. Yung implied interest na yan. Okay? So sagot natin again is letter C. Over the credit period. Next item 11. For purposes of non-monetary exchanges, the configuration of cash flows includes which of the following? So the question is actually referring to the configuration of cash flows. I-relate natin dyan. Tinutumbok niya actually yung commercial substance. How do we determine if an exchange transaction, non-monetary exchanges, involves commercial substance? So when we refer for commercial substance, configuration of commercial substance or cash flows for the assets involved in an exchange, we actually are involving risk, timing, and amount for the cash flows of that asset. Okay? So sagot natin is letter B. Again, letter B is the question, and the letter B is actually referring to commercial substance. Okay? For exchange of non-monetary assets, commercial substance is defined as the triggering event that will cause for the significant change in the cash flows. Okay? So amount, timing, and risk are involved in assessing whether the exchange involves commercial substance. Okay? You are actually assessing whether the asset that you're going to receive will the cash flows of that new asset will differ with the old asset that you have given up. Okay? So yun tinitignan mo, amount, timing, and risk. So we are referring here again with the commercial substance. Okay? So take note when we are answering problems with exchange transactions, kailangan tignan kung merong significant changes or kung mayroong mga clue dun sa problem na yung exchange will involve commercial substance. Okay? So next, item 12. Based on PIC Interpretations Committee, the cost of demolition of unwanted building, meaning unusable building, so purchase as part of the parcel of land shall be charged to, and yung tinatanong, saan daw mapupunta yung cost ng demolition ng unwanted building? Okay? I know, hindi pala synonymous yung unwanted sa unusable. Unwanted. Okay. I get it. Unwanted, whether it is usable or unusable, pag demolish natin, meaning unwanted. Okay. So, unwanted building. So, yung sagot, yung suggested answer dito is letter D. Okay. Cost of the new building, preferred treatment sa kanya, or cost of the land, alternative treatment. So, kung babalikan natin yung PIC interpretation, again, hindi synonymous yung unwanted sa unusable. Unwanted, ibig sabihin, hindi natin kailangan yung building na yan, whether the building is still usable or unusable. Okay? Meaning, pag giniba natin yung usable or unusable building, tawag na doon is unwanted. Okay? Hindi natin kailangan. So for PIC interpretation, again, whether usable or unusable, pag hindi natin kailangan yung building na yan, we have to demolish, okay, yung preferred treatment if the intention is to make room for the construction of new building, then part of the new building siya. Pero kapag we are preparing only the land for the intended use of the land, not for construction of the new building, then letter C will apply na kailangan part siya ng cost ng land. Okay? We are referring here with the net demolition cost. That is why sagot natin kanina is letter N, preferred treatment, new building. Alternative treatment, part ng land. Item 13. Item 13, which of the following is not chargeable to the machinery and equipment account? So, costing again. Okay, determining items of cost for an asset. So, machinery and equipment. Yung sagot natin dito is letter B. Yung letter A, freight and installation cost, actually, yung buo dyan is we have pa insurance and storage cost necessary for the acquisition. Pasok yan as part of the cost of machinery and equipment. Letter C, testing. Testing cost or minsan sabi dyan trial run cost before the asset is ready for intended use. Then yung material, labor, and other expenditures incurred in replacing the equipment ready for use. In placing the equipment ready for use. So pasok yan. Yung sagot natin is letter B because repair cost incurred when equipment is damaged in the process of installation. Minor minor repair. Normal lang actually na medyo magda-damage ng konti yung equipment at the moment of installation. Kasi nga minsan naghihirap mag-assemble or install. So nakakaroon ng konting-konting error kaya needed yung repair. Repair on damages on that equipment or machinery at within the process of installation, minor expenditure. Kaya hindi siya part ng cost ng machinery and equipment account. Yung letter B, yung repair cost dyan is actually treated as immediate expense. So if we're going to analyze, ayan po lahat yung items included as part of the machine account. Okay? So if we're going to focus yung meaning letter I, sabi dyan, other major cost incurred for the machine subsequent to acquisition. So kapag mga minor, minor repair, lalo na yung maintenance. By the name itself, yung maintenance cost, hindi yan nagpapa-improve sa asset. Yung repair, pwede pa yung repair magpa-improve sa asset. Pero depende si repair kung major or minor repair. Okay? So yung doon, again, pag repair lang during installation, kasi normal naman ma-damage yung asset during installation, then minor lang yung repair na tinutukoy sa letter B. That is why yung sagot natin is letter B. Item 14, in a lump sum purchase of land and building, ayan, ito yung sinasabi ko kanina sa PIC interpretation. Na lump sum purchase of land and building, single price lang, single cost. The cost allocated to the old building is accounted for as. Yan. So tinatanong dito, yung ibig sabihin ng question, paano if we have acquired land and building at a single cost? Sabi sa PIC interpretation, we allocate the single cost on the basis of the fair values of the land and building at the date of acquisition. So yung tinatanong sa problem, ano yung magiging treatment ng allocated cost ng old building? Ano yung magiging sa kanya treatment? Okay? Hindi sinabi kung yung scenario. So we have to qualify each item. Okay? Suggested answer is letter A. Okay? Let us qualify first B, C, and D. Letter B sabi diyan, not allocated but is part of the cost of the land. PIC interpretation, sabi doon, pag merong fair value yung land and building, allocate the single cost doon kay land and building. Doon kay land and building. So letter B, mali na yan. Letter C, unrealized loss to be reported in OCI, hindi naman na sinabi ng PIC interpretation yan. Na i-report sa OCI. Walang ganon. Okay? The letter D, amortized over the useful life of the new building. Hindi rin pwede. Okay? Mali din yan. Okay? So sa letter A, naging tama sa letter A kasi sabi niya, expense when the old building is demolished to give way to the construction of new building. Nagiging tama si A, lalo na kung yung i-demolish natin na old building is a usable building. Kapag yung usable building, dinemolish, tapos meron siyang allocated cost, yan, lagay na natin yung explanation. If yung allocated cost ng usable building is treated as a loss, yan yung tinutukoy kanina sa letter A na expense. Loss is an expense. So the allocated cost, the usable building is actually treated as a loss kapag dinemolish natin yung usable building na yan. Okay? So item 15. For item 15, the following are required to be disclosed in the also financial statement Z. So lahat daw required disclosure maliban lang sa isa. Okay? So yung sagot natin dyan is letter C. So letter A, required disclosure din yan. Letter B, the same. Kung merong reversal, lalo na kung nagkaroon ng prior payment, then we assess ulit at the end of the year. Kung merong reversal, then we accounted for the reversal. We need to disclose kung merong reversal ng impairment. Then letter D, depreciation method used always. Okay, required disclosure yan. Letter C, sabi kasi sa accounting for fully depreciated property or assets, okay? For fully depreciated asset, hindi siya required disclosure, okay? Not a required disclosure, but entities are encouraged to disclose that fully depreciated asset. Okay, so concepts for fully depreciated asset. So yung carrying amount niya is set to 0 or the estimated residual value kung merong residual value yung asset. Okay? Nagiging zero lang yung carrying amount ng fully depreciated asset kapag walang residual value. Kasi yung cost at saka yung accumulated depreciation account, nag-i-equal na yung amounts doon. Kasi na-fully exhaust natin yung cost kung walang residual value. Pero kung may residual value, okay, close daw yung account ng asset at saka ng accumulated depreciation, then presented separately yung residual value. Okay? But i-close but hindi siya nire-remove from the records. But then again, yung focus ng question is disclosure, as a matter of disclosure. So for entities, hindi required yung entity, hindi sila required to disclose for fully depreciated assets. Rather, they are just encouraged. Okay? They're just encouraged. So, kaya yung sagot natin is letter C, fully depreciated property. Item 16, which of the following statements best describes the proper accounting for losses when non-monetary assets are exchanged for other non-monetary assets? Sagot natin is letter A. So all gains or losses involved in a non-monetary exchange of asset are immediately recognized to profit or loss statement. Okay? So immediately recognize gain or loss as a result of exchange. Okay? Exchange also includes yung trade-in. Merong gain or loss din doon. Nagre-recognize lang tayo ng gain or loss kung we are accounting for exchange with commercial substance. Kasi kapag may commercial substance, basically we are using fair values. Okay? We are using fair values. So fair values versus carrying values, generally merong difference. So talagang may gain or loss na may involved. Okay? So all gains or losses as a result of exchange immediately reported to profit or loss statement. Okay? Item 17, property, plant, and equipment acquired by way of donation. So tinatanong naman tayo dito ng sa donated asset. Usually yung recording natin sa donated asset are based on the fair value of the donated asset. Okay, so sagot natin is letter B. So for donations, okay, the recording of the donation is debited to the fair value of the asset and credited the same to donated capital account. Another thing to consider is any expenses incurred in relation to the donation or those expenses necessary to complete the donation, they are charged against the donated capital account. Okay? So again, pag donation transaction, the recording is based on the fair value of the donated asset. Kaya letter B yung sagot natin. Item 18. The gain or loss from the sale or the recognition of property shall be based on the difference between. So tinatanong naman tayo dito, gain or loss in the relation to removal or the recognition of the asset, okay? The recognition through sale or disposal. Okay? So yung sagot natin dito is letter C. It is the net disposal proceeds and the carrying amount of the property. So if we're talking with sale or disposal of the asset, okay, as a the recognition, any gain or loss will be determined as the net cash proceed. Okay, how do we determine net cash proceed? It is the selling price less selling or disposal cost for that asset. Then i-compare yung net cash proceed na yan sa carrying or book value ng asset. Yun yung dinedefine sa letter C kanina. Okay, net disposal proceed. Net disposal or net selling proceed or net cash proceed. Okay? Item 19. Under PAS 8, by the way, PAS 8 is accounting policies, changes in accounting, changes in estimates and errors. So under PAS 8, the treatment of change in residual value of PPE shall be accounted for as. So we are referring here so changes in accounting estimate for PPE. Okay? Yung sagot natin dito is letter A, change in accounting estimate with prospective application. So ibig sabihin, what is in the past, hindi na natin gagalawin yan. Kasi retrospective yung ibig sabihin nun kung if we're going to adjust everything in the past. Pero kung if we're going to apply past 8 changes in the estimate related to PPE, prospective na po. Okay, prospective na po yung application. So, past 16, paragraph 76 in accordance with past 8, changes in accounting estimate for PPE may arise through changes in residual values, nandyan, estimate cost of dismantling, removing, or restoring items of PPE. Then we also have changes in useful lives, and we have the change in depreciation method. Okay? So if you have encountered problem na merong mga changes, among that 4, they are actually treated as change in accounting estimate lang. Okay? Item 20. For item 20, depreciation is best described as a method of, okay, so tinatanong, depreciation is a matter of what? Parang ganon. Okay? If we're going to go back sa concept ng depreciation do sa undergrad natin, depreciation is a matter of cost allocation rather than valuation. Okay? So letter yung sagot natin, cost allocation. Depreciation is not a matter of asset valuation or merely valuation. Kasi yung concept kasi ng depreciation is a systematic allocation of the cost or depreciable amount of the asset. Okay, generally over the useful life of the asset. Yung useful life ng asset depende kung anong method yung gagamitin mo. But generally, depreciation is the systematic allocation of the asset. What are we allocating here is the depreciable amount. Okay? So we are actually matching the benefit that we can derive from the use of the asset with the expired portion of that asset's cost. Okay? Again, depreciation is a matter of cost allocation rather than a valuation. Okay? Yan yung ibig sabihin ng item 20. Item 21. Okay. So, tapos na tayo sa kalahati. Ayan. So, for item 21, depreciation measurement should be based on, yung ibig sabihin lang ng question is, what is the basis of our depreciation? Saan natin binibase yung pag-compute ng depreciation? Yung sagot dyan is letter C, past input exchange price. Yung ibig sabihin ng past input exchange price is actually yung original or historical cost ng asset. Or minsan sa problem solving yung binibigay is original acquisition cost. Okay? Yung acquisition cost, it may or may not be the entire amount na gagamitin nating depreciable amount. Kasi si depreciable amount, we define depreciable amount generally as the cost of the asset less the residual value. So kung may residual value yung asset, yung depreciable amount natin will be the cost after considering residual value. Pero kung yung yung asset natin walang residual value, then the depreciable amount will be the entire cost. But then again, kung i-explain natin what is past input exchange price, ibig sabihin lang yan the original or historical cost for the asset. Okay? Okay, next item 22. Sabi sa item 22, which of the following depreciation methods applies a uniform depreciation charge each period to an asset's book value? Take note yung sinasabi dyan, uniform depreciation rate. Take note wag magpalito sa yung term na uniform. Yung tinatawag na uniform dyan is the depreciation rate. A depreciation rate each period to an asset's book value. Okay? So, yung sagot natin dyan is letter C. Sir, yung straight line method, ano naman yan eh, uniform din naman yan. Uniform yung charge sa kanya. Bakit hindi sagot natin is letter A? Yung straight line, yung uniform lang dyan is the amount. Okay? Every year uniform yung amount na nare-recognize natin generally for straight line method. Pero yung naka-specify sa question is depreciation rate. Okay? Depreciation rate. Kung makikita nyo, yung merong fixed lang talaga na depreciation rate is the declining balance. Okay, yung declining balance. Remember when we compute with the 150% and the double declining balance. Uniform yung charge. So meaning every year, we charge a fixed rate sa book value ng asset. Okay? So for example, every year 20%, every year 30%, every year 40%, parang ganon. Yung straight line method kasi every year naka-refer na diretso na sa amount. Kaya nga over useful life. Eh wala tayong depreciation rate sa straight line na percentage. Over useful life agad tayo sa straight line. Yung sagot is letter C, declining balance. Okay? Uniform depreciation. Take note, rate. Rate. Okay, na form of percentage. Item 23. Which of the following would probably not be depreciated over its useful life? Saan daw, o alin daw yung hindi natin i-depreciate over the useful life? Of all the items, yung sagot natin is letter B, a hammer. Okay, bakit hindi pwede yung hammer? Kasi nga, yung hammer is actually na form of tools lang yan. Okay, it could be considered as part of the tools or other supplies. Therefore, hindi mag-a-apply yung mga depreciation method na straight line, yung ano pa ba, sum the use digit, tsaka yung declining balance or variable methods. Yung applicable na method for a hammer, okay, or for tools and other supplies would be yung inventory, retirement, or replacement method. Kasi hindi nag-involve ng useful life for the computation of depreciation, yung tatlong method na yan. Okay? So again, yung sagot natin is yung hammer. Okay? Kasi considered siya as part ng tools and other supplies. Yung company vehicle, talagang may useful life yan, PPE yan. Office equipment, ganun din. Lalo na yung building, common PPE. Okay? Item 24. Which of the following statements in the assumption, which of the following statements is the assumption on which straight line depreciation is based? So saan daw naka-based na assumption si straight line method ng depreciation? Okay? Yung suggested answer is letter A. Si letter A, sabi niya, service value declines as a function of time rather than use. Okay, take note, we are referring with straight line method. Straight line method, yung concept niya is really the function of time rather than use. Take note, when we compute depreciation for straight line, we are using the useful life of the asset in terms of years. Years is referring sa time. Okay? Yung depreciation method na nagre-refer sa usage rather than time, yung variable method natin na working hours o service hours, at saka yung output or units of production method na depreciation methods. Pero yung straight line, it is a matter of time rather than usage. Okay? Function of time than usage. Pero yung function of usage rather than time, again, we have the working or service hours method, output and output or units of production method. Next, item 25. So item 25, tinatanong, SYD provides for depreciation by. So we have to complete. Okay? Yung sagot dito is letter C. So multiplying the depreciable amount of the asset by a series of fractions. So tama yan. Whose numerator is the digit in the life or the remaining life of the asset, and whose denominator is the sum of the digits in the life of the asset. So if we're going to explain that, we are actually referring sa formula, sa mathematical formula or expression natin for SYD. So we compute the depreciation for the under SYD, okay, as the depreciable amount times the life over SYD. Okay? Ito yung actually yung nare-refer dun sa letter C. If we're going to express letter C in an mathematical formula or mathematical expression. Okay, depreciable amount times life over the sum of the years digit of the life of the asset. Okay? Item 26, method of depreciation where the charge is decreasing as accounting period passes by. Decreasing, okay, lumiliit or bumababa yung depreciation natin as time goes by. Okay. Straight line, hindi po kasi fixed amount yan. Working hours, variable, depende siya. Hindi natin masasabi na decreasing siya. Composite, lalo na kasi si composite, parang derivative lang yan ng straight line method. Yung sagot na lang natin dito is letter D. Okay? Why letter D? Kasi si SYD, if we're going to give an example for that, computation natin ng ating SYD or the depreciation rate, ayan. So life times the fraction of life plus 1 over 2. So we can compute the depreciation rate. The depreciation rate, tama. So for example, we have a 5-year useful life. The SYD would be 15. Yung maging numerator natin is 15. Denominator is 15. Yung denominator natin is 15. Yung numerator natin is the useful life or the remaining life. Bakit siya sinasabing bumababa? If you're going to look sa example natin, for the first year, buo pa yung 5 years, kaya nga 5 over 15. Then we deduct 1 year as we proceed with the succeeding periods. For second year, maging 4 na lang. Third year, 3. Fourth year, 2. Fifth year, 1. Kaya pababa. So decreasing talaga siya. Okay? So sagot natin is SYD. Item 27. O yan. So SYD method of depreciation is being used for a machine with 5-year estimated useful life. What would be the fraction na i-apply natin on the 4th year? So kung babalikan natin kanina, yung example, yung explanation, may sagot natin is letter D, 2 over 15. So yan. For the 4th year, mapapansin nyo, 2 over 15 na yung nakalagay. Okay? Item 28. Under retirement method of depreciation, which of the following is done to a retired asset? Take note, yung term is retired asset, not to be retired asset. Iba yung to be retired sa retired asset na. Sagot, letter C. No depreciation is recorded. Simple explanation. Under any depreciation method, including the retirement method, upon the retirement of the asset or upon retiring the asset to be retired, depreciation is recognized pa lang pag nire-retire pa lang si asset. Okay, kapag nire-retire pa lang. Pero kapag yung asset is already retired na, no more depreciation will be recognized. Take note of the terminologies. To be retired versus retired. Okay? Item 29. If there is a change from sum of years digit to straight line, method of depreciation, then, so pinapa-complete sa atin, yung sagot is letter D. Okay? The accumulated depreciation balance is not adjusted, but the remaining book value is allocated over the remaining life using the straight line method. How is letter C different from letter D? Si letter C kasi yung sabi niya, over the original life, hindi na po pwede. We're not going to use original life anymore. Because there's a change in the depreciation method, maapektuhan din yung usage natin sa useful life. What we're going to consider when it comes to changes in accounting estimate for PPE is palaging ko consider sa competition remaining life. Okay, not the original life. Okay, at the date ng effect ng change, kailangan remaining life na yung gagamitin, not the original life. Kaya mas correct sa letter D. Okay? So change in depreciation method, if we're only referring to the change in the depreciation method, wala nang change in the cost, wala nang change in the residual value, or anything else rather than the depreciation method, okay? Hindi natin i-adjust si accumulated depreciation at saka si cost or carrying value. Rather, si carrying value, i-allocate lang natin siya over the remaining life again. Okay? Remaining life of the asset under straight line method na. So, for example, meron tayong 5-year useful life na asset, 2 years natin siyang dine-depreciate over using SYD. Kapag sa third year, okay, beginning of third year, straight line method na yung gamitin, hindi buong 5 years yung pag-depreciate. Rather, the remaining life of 3 years. Yun yung ibig sabihin ng item 29. Okay? Rather, yung accumulated depreciation, hindi natin siya i-adjust, but mag-i-increase siya after it took effect yung change. Kasi magde-depreciate ka using na the straight line. Okay? But at the moment na tinitake effect natin yung change at saka compute tayo ng depreciation, hindi muna natin i-adjust si accumulated depreciation. Okay? Rather, increase the accumulated depreciation pag nag-recognize na ng subsequent depreciation. Okay? Item 30. In accounting for plant assets, which of the following outlays made subsequent to acquisition should be fully expensed in the period of the expenditure is made? So yung tinatanong lang dyan, alin daw sa apat ng expenditure na yan, yung i-expense immediately. Okay? At the date, at the year of expenditure, the period of expenditure is made. Sagot is letter C. Okay? For PPE, okay, subsequent cost for PPE, dalawa lang naman yan. It could either be a major expenditure or a minor expenditure. If the subsequent expenditure is a major expenditure, then that expenditure may enhance or increase the life of the asset or enhance the capacity of the asset, efficiency or effectiveness. Then it can also extend the life of the asset. That is for major expenditure. Kaya yung letter A, B, and D, they are referring to major expenditure. Kasi nga si letter A may increase in efficiency or effectiveness, or we are referring sa capacity niya. Letter B, referring to the extension of the life. So yung major expenditure, nagpapa-extend din yan ng life, possible. Then yung letter D, expenditure to add new asset services, pwede din yan. So enhancement ng totality of the assets. So major expenditure. Yung letter C kasi is referring lang sa minor expenditure. Lalo na yung term dyan na ginamit is to maintain. Okay? If the expenditure incurred is referring only to maintain the existing asset, then hindi siya considered as part of the cost of the asset. Rather, immediately expense. Kaya sagot natin is letter C. Okay? Reason, term, maintain. Okay? Minor expenditure lang yan. Okay. Item 31. An expenditure made in connection with a machine being used by a company should be, so pinapacomplete sa atin, sagot natin dyan is letter B. Okay? So, in connection na rin doon kanina sa item 30. Okay? Subsequent expenditures. Okay? If yung letter A, yung nagpamali sa letter A, kasi sabi niya, if it extends the useful life of the asset but not improve the quality, i-expense immediately daw. Okay, nagkaroon ng extension ng life, hindi natin yan i-expense immediately. Okay? So mali si letter A. Kung i-expense immediately kung nagkaroon ng extension of life. So mali. Kapag nagkaroon ng extension, capitalize. Letter B, expense immediately if merely improves the quality but does not extend the life of the asset. No. Pag nagkaroon ng as long as there's improvement for the asset, whether in the life or the capacity or quality of the asset, hindi siya dapat expense. Letter C, capitalize it if maintains. Ayan, hindi natin i-capitalize kung nagme-maintain lang, hindi nag-improve. So, mali si letter C because of the term capitalize because of maintain. So, mali. Letter D, capitalize if it increases the quantity of units produced by the machine. So, we are referring here with the capacity, increased or enhanced capacity of the asset. So, tama si letter D. So, yan. Referring again sa explanation natin, okay, in comparing major expenditure with minor expenditures. Okay? Then item 32. So item 32, nasa revaluation na tayo sa wakas. So revaluation under PAS 16 PPE applies to, so tinatanong, when we revalue the asset, ano yung application ng revaluation? Okay? So are we going to revalue the assets individually? Okay? Or by class? Or all sets of individual assets? Or individual non-current assets? So yung sagot is letter B. Yung explanation natin dyan by class by class basis, kasi sabi sa PAS 16 paragraph 36. Okay? If we're going to quote, if an item of PPE is revalued, the entire class of PPE to which the asset belongs should be revalued. Meaning, class by class basis. Okay? So, kung i-revalue mo yung building, lahat ng building i-revalue. Kung lahat ng equipment, lahat ng equipment. Lahat ng land, lahat ng land. Lahat ng machine, lahat ng machine. Okay? Class by class. Item 33. Which of the following, which is true pala? Which is true? Okay, so for item 33, which is true about the revaluation model for valuing PPE, sagot natin is letter C. There is no rule for the frequency or date of revaluation. Okay, that is correct. Nagpamali sa letter A, revaluation of asset must be made at least the last day of fiscal year, mali. Letter B, revaluation of assets must be made on the same date each year. Mali. Revaluation of assets must be made every 2 years. Mali. Okay? Yung correct is letter C, no rule on the frequency. Kasi yung explanation natin dyan, according to paragraph 34, again, let us quote PAS 16, the frequency of revaluation nakadepende sa changes in the fair value of the PPE. Yan yung general rule. Okay? Depends on the frequency of the change in the fair value of the PPE. Okay? Pero kung ihuhulog natin sa last sentence ng paragraph, sabi niya, instead, it may be necessary to revalue the item only every 3 or 5 years. Yung letter D kanina nagpamali kasi sabi niya every 2 years. Yung pinaka-suggestion, okay, hindi naman sinasabing talagang every 3 or 5 years. Sabi lang, sinasuggest every 3 or 5 years. Yan yung pwedeng frequency. But then again, it depends. Okay? It depends on the frequency of the change in the fair value of the items to be revalued. Okay? So, kaya correct yung letter C rather than the other items. Next, item 34. Item 34, under PAS 16, when an entity chooses the revaluation model as its accounting policy for measuring PPE, which of the following statements is correct? So, tinatanong yung correct. Ang sagot is letter A. When an asset is revalued, the entire class of PPE to which the asset belongs must be revalued. So, i-quote ulit natin yung past 16 paragraph 36. Okay? Class by class basis or the entire class of the PPE to which the asset belongs. So, kung building, building lahat. Kung machine, machine lahat. Kung lahat ng equipment, lahat yan. Kung lahat ng land, lahat ng land. Item 35. So last how many items lang tayo? So our revaluation increase shall be recognized as income. Medyo tricky yung statement. Revaluation increase shall be recognized as income. If you're going to qualify revaluation increase, pag revaluation yung tinatanong, nasa isip agad natin is OCI. Okay, because revaluation increase or revaluation surplus is an OCI item. Pero bakit yung sabi niya dyan, recognized as income? Okay, when do we recognize a revaluation increase as an income? Yung suggested answer is letter D. When it reverses a revaluation decrease of the same asset previously recognized as expense. Ano yung explanation sa letter D, bakit siya correct? Yung revaluation, kapag yung revaluation natin sa asset, okay, yung revaluation increase is only a result of a mere revaluation ng asset, okay? Hindi siya as a result of a previous impairment, okay? We recognize the revaluation increase as an OCI item. Pero kung yung revaluation increase is a result of potential reversal of impairment, okay, yung nagiging treatment natin sa revaluation increase ay hindi lahat item ng OCI. Yung sabi sa past 16, in relation to revaluation of, revaluation of the asset, i-relate na rin natin dun sa past 36 pala, sa impairment ng asset. When an asset is accounted for under revaluation model, na-impair, tapos subsequently nagkaroon ng reversal, magiging income mo daw yung portion ng revaluation increase up to the extent ng amount na naging impairment in the prior period. So for example, naka-incur tayo ng impairment loss sa previous year. Kapag sa current year daw, nagkaroon tayo ng increase, okay, nagkaroon tayo ng revaluation increase, then that revaluation increase, portion niya pwedeng maging income sa profit or loss statement, okay, to the extent lang ng amount na pwedeng ma-reverse ng impairment loss, then yung excess na amount na yon will be a revaluation increase doon na sa OCI. So ibig sabihin, pag nagkaroon ng revaluation increase, okay, as a result of a previous asset na na-impair, tapos nagkaroon ng revaluation upward, yung revaluation increase, need ka muna mag-report ng portion na yan as income sa profit or loss up to the extent of impairment loss for that revalued asset in the prior period. Then any excess, yun na yung revaluation increase sa OCI statement. Okay? And item 36. Which of the following disclosures is not required when an asset is revalued? So tinatanong tayo, kung alin sa mga items na yan, yung hindi required kapag nagkaroon ng revaluation. Okay? Yung sagot natin is letter C. Name of valuer. Kasi ano yung sabi dun sa past 16, paragraph 77, okay? The required disclosures for the revaluation of asset, nakalagay is whether an independent valuer was involved. Okay? Hindi sinabi whether hindi sinabi na merong needed yung name ng independent valuer. Okay? Hindi required yung name. What is required is whether may independent valuer na involved for the revaluation. But as to the name of that independent valuer, hindi na necessary. Okay? So sagot natin is letter C, name of the valuer. Item 37. Past 16 requires that PPE be tested for impairment. Correct. Which of the following instances does not require recognition of impairment? So, saang instances daw hindi require na magkaroon ng recognition ng impairment? So, yung sagot natin is letter D. Okay? Yung explanation natin bakit mali si letter D, kasi mere low, the if the sound value is lower than the carrying value of the asset, not necessarily means na meron siyang impairment. Although possible na merong impairment dyan. Although possible, hindi probable. Possible. Pwede. Pero yung correct kasi na term na dapat natin gagamitin when it comes to impairment is yung A, B, C, and D. Okay? Recoverable amount is lower than the carrying amount. Okay? The letter B, when the equipment underwent technical obsolescence, which is referring sa mga impairment indications. Okay? So, technical obsolescence, so referring sa external indications yan. Especially pag may technological advancement, yung old version ng asset natin, technically, naging obsolete yan. Letter C, fair value less cost to sell and value in use are lower than carrying value. Talagang in connection yan with letter A kasi both fair value less cost to sell and value in use are potential recoverable amount. Pero yung letter D, sound value, not necessarily the sound value. Okay? So, parang nagpamali siguro is the sound value. Okay? Or kung yung mere intention of letter D is on the revaluation, okay? Kasi titignan muna kung yung revaluation downward is will really involve impairment, but not necessarily na lower yung sound value. Okay? So, sagot natin sa letter D. Item 38, which of the following is considered as part of impairment to be reported in profit or loss? Suggested answers letter C. Claims for compensation from third parties for impairment when the claim is receivable. Compensation. Then item 39, which of the following statements is or are correct about carrying value of long-lived asset after impairment loss? Okay. So first item, the reduced carrying amount of the asset may be increased in subsequent years if impairment loss has been recovered. So ibig sabihin, pag nagkaroon daw ng reversal yan, pwedeng ma-recover sa impairment at mag-i-increase daw si asset. Correct. The second item, the reduced carrying amount of the asset represents the amount that would be depreciated over the asset's remaining useful life. So, referring ito sa after the impairment, yung magiging basis is the reduced carrying amount. So, yung sagot natin is letter C. Both 1 and 2. They are both correct. Last, for item 40, in accordance with PAS 36, PAS 36 is actually impairment of asset pala. Long-lived assets are required to be reviewed for impairment. Sagot is letter C. When circumstances indicated that the carrying amount of the asset might not be recoverable. Actually, letter C is referring to impairment indicators. So PAS 36 provides with the following indicators. We have external, we have internal, and we have for investment in subsidiaries, joint venture, and associate. Okay? But normally for PPE, okay, we have external and internal. So for external, nandyan yung due to passage of time or normal use, or nandyan yung significant unfavorable changes affecting the entity, increase in the market interest rates. Then for internal, normal physical damage, changes within the entity, and worse economic performance for the company. Okay? Yan. Okay? So significant changes. So impairment indicators. Yung letter C is referring to impairment indicators. Okay? So I guess that's it. Tapos natin lahat yung theory questions. What are we up to for the next video discussion is for items 41 to 80. Situational problems na yan. Okay? So, that's it. Sa next video na lang yung situational problems. Yung situational problems, baka magkaroon tayo ng part 1 and part 2. Okay?